Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're not just telling another story, we're entering the forbidden chambers of power, where empires dreamed and died. This is the untold story of how the Ottoman Sultans, the rulers of 3 continents, built a world of silk, gold, and secrets, then slowly fell asleep while their empire crumbled around them. We'll walk through the candlelit corridors of Topkapi Palace, where 300 slaves guarded a single man's sleep. We'll uncover the rituals of the Harem, the opium dreams that clouded judgment, the cage where princes forgot how to rule, and the silence that ended 600 years of power. But this isn't a story of war. It's a story of stillness, a history told softly, like a lullaby from a forgotten age. So, before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes, let the torches fade, and let's begin the story of the empire that fell asleep. Constantinople, 1520. The city sleeps beneath 1,000 lanterns. The Bosporus shimmers like liquid glass, and in the heart of the imperial city stands a palace no commoner would ever see. The Topkapi Palace, the beating heart of the Ottoman Empire, where every whisper could change the fate of the world. Tonight, its corridors are quiet. The sound of water drips from marble fountains, and peacocks rest in moonlight gardens heavy with jasmine. Beyond the Harem gates, behind 7 locked doors of polished cedar, lies a single room, the Sultan's chamber, forbidden to all but a chosen few. Inside, every breath is measured. Incense from Damascus coils through the air, mixing with the soft sweetness of rose oil. The flicker of hundreds of candles glows against walls of mother-of-pearl and lapis, and on the grand bed, draped in Persian silk worth more than gold, the world's most powerful man prepares to close his eyes. Sultan Suleiman, called the Magnificent, ruler of 3 continents, master of armies and seas. Yet, in this quiet hour, he is simply a man seeking sleep. Around him, shadows move with purpose. Eunuchs in white robes adjust the pillows. Servants refill the silver braziers with perfumed smoke. Musicians play the softest notes of the knee flute, a melody meant to calm the mind of an emperor. Outside, the wind brushes through the cypress trees, carrying the faint call of distant prayer. The city kneels, the empire breathes, and the Sultan drifts closer to dreams. But nothing here is simple. This room, this ritual, this silence, it is more than luxury. It is control. The chamber is a fortress disguised as comfort. Every lock hides a fear, every servant a watcher. The Sultan's sleep is not peace, it is performance. A ritual perfected over generations, designed to remind the empire that even its ruler must submit to ceremony. And yet, even within this perfection, something is breaking. Tonight, The walls whisper secrets the empire can no longer ignore. Beyond the velvet curtains, silence is a command. No one speaks unless the Sultan breathes first. Outside the forbidden chamber, a network of guards stands watch, men who do not sleep. The white eunuchs, dressed in linen robes without weapons, guard the inner corridors. Beyond them, the black eunuchs, loyal only to the palace itself, patrol the outer gates with silent precision. Each knows his place. Each step is measured. Each glance rehearsed. Even the way they breathe must never disturb the Sultan's rest. At the first whisper of danger, a chain of bells beneath the marble floor would tremble, alerting the chief warden stationed 2 doors away. But no intruder has ever reached this far, not in 100 years. In Topkapi Palace, danger does not come from outside walls, it comes from within. The Sultan sleeps, but he is never alone. Behind hidden panels, secret tunnels allow spies of the court to observe him, to ensure his life or to confirm his death. Historians whisper that even the scent of his incense was tested by taster slaves in case a rival sought to poison his dreams. Yet tonight, all appears calm. The hum of burning oil lamps, the faint rhythm of footsteps fading down polished marble halls, all blend into a music of stillness. The empire itself seems to exhale through these corridors, as if its soul is suspended on every breath the Sultan takes. But in this perfection lies something fragile. For a ruler who cannot trust the silence around him, sleep becomes a theater of fear. His chamber is an island, surrounded not by soldiers, but by suspicion. Every door locked, every guard loyal to someone else. Even the night sky above him feels scripted. Stars hidden by curtains, moonlight filtered through gold lattice. The Sultan's world is ordered but empty. In seeking total control, he has built himself a prison made of silk. And beyond those heavy doors, an empire of 20 million people waits, governed by a man who has forgotten how to rest. In the still air of Topkapi, where even shadows are afraid to move, one truth lingers. The most dangerous enemy of an empire is not rebellion, but complacent peace. As the palace drifts deeper into night, the ritual begins. It is not prayer, nor music, nor magic, but something far stranger. For the Sultan's sleep is an empire within itself, ruled by 300 silent souls. In the lower halls, slaves from every corner of the realm move in perfect order. Some pour scented water from Persia into silver basins, their movements slow and circular, like time folding into itself. Others press rose petals into oil, so their fragrance will float through the chamber like memory. From Egypt come the linen sheets, bleached by the desert sun. From Anatolia, the cedar pillows carved by monks in the hills. From the east, Opium, the Sultan's gentle bridge between waking and dream. No sound of command is spoken. They know their duty as if born for it. 300 shadows, 300 heartbeats serving one man's rest. When the Sultan lies down, 40 attendants kneel in silence, fanning air that smells of amber and honey. Another group remains at the doors, eyes fixed downward, hands clasped, waiting for the slightest gesture from the chief eunuch. And as the Sultan's eyes grow heavy, the final servant extinguishes the last candle, leaving only a blue glow of moonlight filtered through silk. In that silence, time itself seems to stop. Yet somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, a thought drifts through the Sultan's mind. How many lives serve one dream? Outside, the empire breathes under his rule. Farmers tilling distant soil, soldiers watching frozen borders, mothers whispering prayers for sons who will never see the palace. And here, in this perfect stillness, all of it feels unreal. For the man meant to command millions cannot command his own peace. The richer his rituals became, the further his spirit wandered. And soon, what began as the symbol of divine authority would turn into its poison. Because luxury, when repeated every night, becomes a lullaby that silences vigilance. Even as the Sultan sleeps, the empire stirs. Beyond the marble gates, governors conspire, merchants grow restless, and the seeds of decline take root, quietly, patiently, beneath the lullaby of silk and incense. History would later call it decadence, but tonight it is simply sleep. A sleep so beautiful, so controlled, so utterly complete that it blinds the dreamer to the crumbling world beyond his walls. But the Sultan never slept alone, and that was the problem. Behind the forbidden chamber lay another world, one more dangerous than war, more delicate than diplomacy, the harem. To outsiders, it was a garden of beauty, perfumed with roses and secrets. But within those golden lattices, a silent empire ruled, of women, power, and dreams. At its peak, the imperial harem held between 300 and 1,200 women. Concubines, attendants, dancers, scholars, poets, all bound by the same invisible chain, the desire to be chosen. The Topkapi Palace was not just a fortress of men. Its true heartbeat echoed through corridors where only women walked, barefoot on marble floors polished by centuries of longing. At night, when the Sultan's torches dimmed, the harem came alive. The scent of jasmine drifted through silk curtains. The sound of laughter mingled with whispers in a dozen languages: Circassian, Persian, Greek, Albanian, Ukrainian. Women taken from distant lands, raised not to serve, but to survive. Each carried stories carved by fate: a village burned, a father's debt, a ship crossing a Black Sea. Here, in the shadow of power, they were reborn, renamed, re-educated, reshaped into instruments of grace and strategy. To be seen by the Sultan was to step out of anonymity. To be chosen was to rewrite destiny. But beauty was only the beginning. Behind every soft smile lay the weight of ambition. Every glance carried calculation. For within these walls, a single night could elevate a slave to empress, or condemn her to silence forever. The harem was not built for love. It was built for legacy. Every movement, every ritual, every breath of perfume carried a message to the throne. And as the Sultan slept surrounded by silk and music, the real game of empire played behind the curtains, a quiet storm of jealousy, intellect, and survival. The women of the harem did not wield swords or armies. They ruled through patience, persuasion, and the oldest weapon known to humankind, influence. And in the center of it all, like the moon governing the tides, there was one woman who watched everything, the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, and the true power behind the throne.
In the golden maze of the harem, one woman's footsteps could silence hundreds. She was the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, the only woman allowed to sit upon a throne inside the palace. While others bowed to beauty, she ruled by memory. She had seen sons born and buried, empires rise and fracture. Her voice was soft, but her word was law. Every whisper, every movement within those walls eventually flowed back to her. She decided who advanced, who vanished, and whose name would never again be spoken. Behind her calm eyes, the empire's true machinery turned. Ministers trembled before her letters. Governors waited for her nod. Even the Sultan, mighty as he was, would lower his gaze when she entered. For he knew that his crown rested on the years she had spent surviving the same labyrinth that now served him. The Valide Sultan's chamber was unlike any other, wide, warm, perfumed with sandalwood and silence. Courtiers came to her not for affection, but for fate. To them, she was the oracle of survival. To her, they were chess pieces, each useful, each temporary. From this quiet fortress, she guided everything: alliances, marriages, births, and sometimes deaths. And the most sacred ritual of all was the choosing, the night when the Sultan's attention would fall upon one woman. That single choice could ripple through the empire like a storm. Because in the harem, a night in the royal bed was not pleasure, it was policy. Behind the curtains of silk and desire, political factions formed like constellations, all orbiting the Sultan's mood. One smile from him could crown a woman's son the future heir. One frown could erase generations of ambition. The women knew this, so they learned not only the language of beauty, but the art of timing, the rhythm of silence. They waited behind doors, trained in the subtle warfare of glances and gestures. When the Sultan's attendants approached, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. A A nod, a curtain lifted, and destiny shifted. Sometimes the chosen woman entered the Sultan's chamber trembling, not from excitement, but from the knowledge that every other pair of eyes in the harem now burned with envy. The next morning, her rank would change. New silks, new servants, new dangers. For in this world, to rise was to be seen, and to be seen was to become a target. The Valid Sultan watched all of this unfold as if reading the stars. She knew the price of desire, for she had once paid it herself. And as she watched another generation repeat the same dance beneath her windows, she whispered a prayer to no one. May they learn before they are destroyed. But she knew most would not. For the harem's beauty was its curse, a place where devotion, ambition, and despair shared the same perfume. Among the hundreds of women who drifted through the marble corridors of Topkapi, one name would outshine them all: Harem. To the west, she was known as Roxalana, the red-haired slave from the frozen plains of Ruthania. To history, she became the storm that rewrote an empire. No one expected her to last more than a few nights in the Sultan's favor. She was foreign, outspoken, too clever for her place. But Suleiman, the magnificent, the untouchable, saw in her something different: laughter, wit, and a mind sharper than his vizier's. At first, she was amusement, then fascination, then love. And in the Ottoman court, love was far more dangerous than hate. Harem understood this better than anyone. She turned affection into architecture. Her words shaped policy. Her letters carried more weight than generals. From her chamber, she wrote to kings and queens of Europe in elegant Turkish, signed not as a concubine, but as Haseki Sultan, the Sultan's chosen consort, the only woman ever to hold that title. She had no noble blood, no army, no allies, only intelligence, charm, and time. And with those, she conquered the greatest empire of her age. The Valida Sultan watched with unease. The ministers murmured warnings, but Suleiman listened only to Harem. Her laughter echoed through the gardens, her advice through the council hall. She bore him sons, and with each child, her influence deepened like roots beneath marble. Yet power has its shadow. The harem, once a kingdom of silent ambition, became a battlefield of silk and suspicion. Rival consorts vanished quietly. Alliances shifted. Harem learned to trust no one, not even the night. History whispers that her rivals met mysterious ends: a poisoned sherbet, a fall from the terrace, a disappearance into the Bosporus mist. Whether true or not, the air around her shimmered with danger. But the greater tragedy was not hers, it was the empire's. For while the Sultan's heart rested in Harem's hands, his empire began to rest as well. Politics slowed, armies waited, decisions softened. The court became a theater of affection instead of ambition. And though Harem believed she was securing her family's future, she unknowingly built the foundation of Ottoman decline.
her letters remain, elegant, tender, and haunting. "Your absence," she wrote to Solomon on campaign, "has made my soul like a bird without wings." In those words, an empire confessed its own weakness. A ruler who once commanded the world now moved only to the rhythm of love. When Harem died, Solomon never took another consort. He built for her a tomb beside his own, 2 domes touching beneath the Istanbul sky. And though centuries have passed, the echo remains, the whisper of a woman who turned devotion into destiny and love into the quiet undoing of an empire.
To escape the pressure, sultans turned to something darker. In the stillness of the palace, long after the council had ended and the servants had withdrawn, another ritual began, one not recorded in official chronicles. It was the ritual of forgetting. From the 16th century onward, the Ottomans embraced opium not as vice, but as luxury, a slow river that carried the mind away from power, away from fear. In the Sultan's sleep chamber, everything was prepared as if for prayer. The braziers glowed with amber resin. The air shimmered with the fragrance of frankincense, rose, and musk. Musicians sat cross-legged, playing the slow, endless melodies of the Sufi ney, each note spiraling like smoke toward heaven. A reciter of the Quran whispered verses about paradise, his voice blending with the hum of distant fountains. And in the center of it all, upon a bed draped in Persian silk, the Sultan reclined, surrounded by comfort so perfect it felt unreal. The sheets were woven from gold-threaded silk, the pillows stuffed with swan feathers. Candles flickered in mirrored lamps, reflecting light like ripples over water. Beside him, a small silver dish held the night's offering, a dark, glistening resin wrapped in rose petals. It was opium, prepared by palace physicians who called it tiryak, the antidote to sorrow. He would inhale the smoke through pipes carved from ivory, each breath melting the day away. The world's weight would lift, the worries of empire, the plots of ministers, the whispers of the harem, all dissolved into haze. His heartbeat slowed. The mind, once sharp as a blade, softened into mist. Around him, the chamber swayed with shadow and fragrance. The ney's song became slower, deeper. The Quran's verses stretched like dreams. Servants moved as if underwater, their movements deliberate, graceful, unreal. For a moment, everything was peace. But peace can be a form of surrender. What began as healing soon became hunger, the body craving that same stillness, the mind yearning for the same escape. And though the empire outside grew restless, within these golden walls, night after night, the Sultan floated between worlds, half king, half ghost, seeking not wisdom, not pleasure, but absence. Before the dream, there was always a ritual. In the Ottoman palaces, sleep was not simply rest, it was ceremony.
The Sultan's attendants would enter in silence, barefoot, carrying trays of gold and crystal. They moved like ghosts, guided by tradition older than any of them. First came the incense, sandalwood and amber melted over glowing coals until the chamber smelled like heaven. Then the music, 2 ney flutes, a soft drum, a harp whispering in minor tones. The melody had no rhythm, no end. It floated like breath, like thought dissolving into night. Next came the words. A holy man, chosen from the palace mosque, recited verses of the Quran about peace and paradise, his voice deep and slow, almost blending with the sound of the burning coals. Sleep, he would murmur, is the brother of death. And in that moment, everyone in the room would lower their gaze, for they all knew the power of that line. Even the Sultan himself, wrapped in layers of silk, would feel a chill behind his eyelids. The chamber glowed with faint light, hundreds of candles placed in mirrored alcoves, their reflections forming halos that danced along the ceiling. Around the Sultan, courtiers arranged the bed. 4 sheets of Persian silk, each softer than the last, embroidered with golden tulips and calligraphy praising God's mercy. The pillows were filled with swan feathers, the blankets woven from gold thread. Every detail was perfection, and yet, beneath that perfection, something hollow stirred. The Sultan would lift a small cup to his lips, a potion brewed with opium and honey, called Sherbet of Serenity. It tasted of roses and smoke. The first sip made his fingers tremble. The second silenced his mind. The world tilted gently, as if the palace itself had begun to float. He would sink into the bed, surrounded by warmth, by sound, by fragrance, and yet, inside, he drifted away from everything real. To the courtiers, he appeared divine, lost in sacred peace. But to history, that peace was poison. For every night that the Sultan surrendered to the smoke, another decision was delayed, another warning unheard. Ministers waited, armies paused, the empire slept. And in that stillness, something ancient began to rot. The ritual continued, night after night, until no one could remember when the Sultan had last ruled awake.
They called him Ibrahim the Mad. But madness in the palace rarely came overnight. It began in whispers, in dreams, in nights that stretched too long. By the time Sultan Ibrahim I inherited the throne, the empire had already begun to dream through its rulers, and opium was the lullaby. His sleep chamber was larger than most villages, the ceiling painted with stars of gold leaf, the walls draped in velvet so thick that sound itself could not escape. He demanded silence so complete that even the servants learned to walk without breathing. Each night, the same ritual unfolded, but with excess no historian could believe. Dozens of braziers burned at once, filling the air with sweet smoke until the lamps glowed like moons under water. Physicians stood by with silver pipes, polishing them with rose oil.
Musicians played unseen behind curtains of silk, while eunuchs recited lines of poetry to the rhythm of Ibrahim's slow, uneven breaths. Then the Sultan would reach for the bowl of opium sherbet, his fingers trembling with expectation. "Enough to quiet the world," he would whisper, and the servants obeyed. The smoke rose, the air thickened. His pupils widened like the sea at night. Soon the marble lions carved at his bedside began to breathe. The golden tulips embroidered on his pillows opened and closed as if alive. He laughed softly at first. He spoke to invisible guests. He saw oceans where there were walls and heard the empire's drums inside his veins. In his hallucinations, he commanded fleets made of clouds, armies of mirrors, and viziers with wings of fire. The courtiers called it divinity. The chroniclers called it decay. In truth, it was both. As the night deepened, Ibrahim's laughter turned to murmurs, then to fear. He thought shadows whispered his name. He ordered the fountains sealed because he believed they were listening. Once he threw coins into the air, shouting that he was feeding the stars. Another night, he demanded all the palace cats be brought to his chamber, hundreds of them, so that he might hear them purr in harmony. By dawn, he lay motionless, eyes open, lost in a fog so deep even dreams could not find him. Outside, the empire waited. Ministers gathered for decisions that never came. Generals debated battles that would never begin. The empire drifted, just like its ruler, half awake, half forgotten. When Ibrahim was finally overthrown, the chroniclers wrote only one line: "He slept while his world collapsed." Yet, in the silence of his last night, one might still imagine the flicker of candles, the scent of rose and ash, and the faint echo of a voice murmuring through the haze, "Just a little more, just enough to forget."
Outside the Sultan's chamber, the night was never empty. Beneath the stars of Istanbul, an army of men stood in silence. The Janissaries, the most feared and loyal soldiers of the Ottoman Empire. For centuries, they had been the blade and the shield of the throne. Taken as children from Christian villages, trained from boyhood in discipline, faith, and obedience, they were reshaped into perfect warriors. Men who owed their lives only to the Sultan. No family, no fortune, no past. Only the empire, only the will of their master. At night, they guarded the palace in shifts so precise that even the moon could not slip through unnoticed. 7 gates separated the Sultan's chamber from the outer world, each locked with a code that changed every sunset. The first gate, guarded by the white eunuchs, silent as marble. The second, watched by the chief Janissary, whose sword had never known rust. Beyond that, halls of gold and shadow, where the flicker of torches trembled on walls engraved with prayers. No one entered without permission. Not even a breath moved without being seen. To be a Janissary was to be awake while the world slept, to stand between chaos and the Sultan's dream. They were called the children of the sword, and their loyalty was legend. When the Sultan slept, they did not. They kept vigil not only with weapons, but with their very breath. It was said that a Janissary could sense danger before sound itself. And yet, loyalty, like silk, wears thin over time. The men who began as protectors would one day learn that power felt heavier in their hands than in any crown. The empire had given them everything: purpose, strength, and pride. But pride is a quiet poison. It seeps through devotion until obedience becomes resentment. Outside the sleeping Sultan's walls, the Janissaries stood unmoving, faces hidden beneath white turbans, their eyes reflecting the glow of torchlight. None spoke, yet each carried thoughts they dared not voice. They had seen emperors grow weak, ministers grow fat, the court sink into luxury, while soldiers bled at forgotten borders. And in their silence, a seed took root, the thought that perhaps, one day, they would decide who was worthy to rule. The night air was still. The guards shifted slightly, their armor whispering like distant thunder. Inside, the Sultan dreamed of eternal peace. Outside, his protectors began to dream of power.
In the beginning, the Janissaries were shadows of faith and discipline, but shadows grow darker when the light above them falters. As the centuries passed, the empire's strength no longer flowed from the sword. It flowed from the corridors of the palace, from whispers and bribes, from hands that once held spears, but now weighed gold. The Janissaries began to see what others feared to speak. Sultans grew softer, viziers grew richer, and the empire itself began to drift like a ship without wind. In their eyes, they were not servants anymore. They were guardians of destiny. And when a ruler forgot his duty, they believed it was their right to remind him or to remove him. Power, like sleep, has its patterns. Once the Janissaries learned they could wake an empire, they no longer wished to let it dream. What began as silent vigilance turned into judgment. Their swords, once raised for the Sultan, now pointed toward the throne. The palace that had once been a fortress of loyalty became a cage trembling from within. Ministers whispered of secret meetings among the Janissary corps, oaths sworn not to God but to one another. By the early 1600s, their barracks in Istanbul had become a state within a state. Their loyalty was for sale, their anger uncontainable. The streets outside Topkapi echoed with the sound of boots, not of invaders, but of protectors demanding to be obeyed. And from that moment, the empire would never sleep peacefully again. The first great tremor came in 1622. Sultan Osman II, young, ambitious, and impatient for reform, dared to dream of an army beyond the Janissaries, one loyal to his vision, not his throne. He spoke of modernization, of reducing their power, of ending centuries of untouchable privilege. To the old guard, these were not reforms, they were insults. The Janissaries muttered, then shouted, then marched. And behind the palace gates, the night that had once been silent began to burn with rage.
The night of May 19, 1622, began like any other in Topkapi Palace. The moon hung low above the Bosporus, its reflection trembling on the dark water. Inside, Sultan Osman II slept peacefully, or as peacefully as a man can when his empire no longer listens. He was 20, handsome, brilliant, and naive enough to believe that loyalty could be commanded by decree. That night, the guards took their places, as always. 7 gates locked. Codes whispered. The torches flickered over marble walls. But something was different. A silence too heavy. A pause too long between steps. Beneath the surface of ritual, tension coiled like a serpent. In the barracks, the Janissaries murmured among themselves, not in reverence, but in rage. They had heard of the Sultan's plan to replace them, to form a new army of loyal youth. To them, it was betrayal. To him, it was salvation. The line between the two vanished before midnight. The rebellion began quietly. A handful of soldiers refused their orders, then a dozen, then hundreds. Boots echoed across the courtyard. Torches rose like fireflies. The palace gates trembled under fists and fury. The sound reached Osman's chamber, distant, rhythmic, like thunder crawling closer. He awoke, confused. The chief eunuch rushed in, whispering of unrest. Osman demanded his horse, his sword. But the guards hesitated. Some wept. Some looked away. The doors that had always protected him now stood between him and freedom. The 7 locks that once kept danger out now kept the Sultan in. When the Janissaries broke through, they did not shout. They moved like a tide, cold, unstoppable. Osman stood at the center of his room, still in his night robes, his eyes wide not with fear, but disbelief. "You are my soldiers," he said. "You swore to guard me." No one answered. They seized him by the arms. Outside, the courtyard blazed with torches. He was dragged through the same corridors where emperors had once been crowned. The air smelled of iron and incense. The marble floors echoed with footsteps, not of honor, but of history collapsing. Near the barracks gate, they strangled him with a bowstring, the royal method, bloodless and final. When it was done, the night returned to silence. The same stars shone. The same sea whispered. Only the empire had changed. From that night onward, the Janissaries were no longer guardians. They were kingmakers and executioners. The watchers of the throne had become the hand that could unmake it. To prevent civil war, they created a prison that destroyed their future. After centuries of blood and betrayal over the throne, the Ottomans finally sought peace, not through wisdom, but through walls. The system was called kafes, the cage. Deep within the palace of Topkapi, behind corridors scented with jasmine and fear, there existed a place unlike any other, a world where princes lived not as heirs, but as prisoners. It began with good intentions. In the early years of the empire, succession had been decided by the sword, brothers killing brothers to secure the throne. The empire could not endure another cycle of fratricide. So, in a desperate act of control, the court decreed every male heir of the Sultan must live inside the palace, confined to private apartments called the cage. No contact with the world outside, no experience in rule, no chance to live as men, just waiting, endlessly waiting for the call of destiny or the sound of death. The rooms were beautiful, almost painfully so. Tiled walls glimmered with turquoise and gold. Windows opened to courtyards filled with songbirds. But beauty, when you cannot leave it, becomes a kind of torment. The princes paced marble floors polished by generations of footsteps that led nowhere. They read poetry, memorized verses, played the oud to pass the hours. But the silence pressed harder each day. No one dared speak of politics. No one dared dream of the throne. They were guarded by eunuchs who served without emotion, silent men in white robes who watched every breath. Outside, the empire continued. Wars, treaties, revolts. But inside the cage, time did not exist. The boys who entered as princes grew into men who no longer knew how to live. They watched the seasons through latticed windows, counting years by the falling of leaves, and when one sultan died, the cage would open, not for freedom, but for coronation. A trembling, pale figure would step out, blinking into daylight for the first time in decades. The empire would place a crown on his head, call him Shadow of God on earth, and he would look around, confused, frightened, barely able to speak. The Ottomans had ended civil war, but they had traded blood for silence and chaos for decay.
For 24 years, Prince Ibrahim lived without sunlight. Behind latticed windows and perfumed curtains, he grew into a man the world had forgotten, and who, in return, forgot the world. They called his prison the cage, but it was built of velvet, gold, and silence. His meals were carried on silver trays, his robes embroidered by unseen hands. The air smelled of rosewater and dust. But in that beauty, his mind began to bend. Each day was the same prayer, the same walk from one wall to another, the same echo of his own footsteps. He could not see beyond the courtyard. He could not hear the city. His only company was fear. Fear of dying, fear of being remembered, fear of being chosen. Because to be chosen meant to leave the cage, but only as the Sultan when the last one was dead. And so he waited. The guards changed, the seasons passed, and somewhere outside the empire moved on. New wars, new laws, new songs in the streets, but inside, time became circular. Ibrahim would sit for hours watching the dust dance in sunlight, wondering if it was snow. Sometimes he laughed for no reason. Sometimes he wept at his reflection in the copper mirror, convinced it was someone else watching him. He began to talk to the walls. He called them by names: Father, Brother, God. And when the wind blew through the lattice, he thought it whispered answers. Then, one morning, after 24 years of waiting, the door opened. The old Sultan had died. The guards bowed. "You are to be crowned," they said. Ibrahim stared at them in silence. He had not seen another man's face in years. His voice trembled as he asked, "Crowned for what?" The eunuchs dressed him in gold, placed jewels on his hands that shook like autumn leaves. As he stepped outside, sunlight struck his eyes. He flinched as if wounded. The sky was too large, the air too cold, the world too real. And in that instant, something within him cracked, the soundless break of a mind unprepared for freedom. He ruled for 8 years, but he never left the shadows. Ministers found him talking to the curtains, accusing the harem walls of betrayal, whispering to the fountains that they were plotting against him. They called him Ibrahim the Mad, but he was not born mad. He was shaped that way by 24 years of silence, by the echo of his own heartbeat against golden bars.
Once, the Ottomans raised princes to rule the world. In the age of Suleiman the Magnificent, heirs were not hidden behind walls. They were sent across provinces to govern cities, command armies, and learn the rhythm of power. Suleiman himself ruled as governor of Manisa before he wore the crown. He learned hunger, diplomacy, the weight of decision. He faced storms before he faced ceremony. And so when he became Sultan, he knew not only how to rule, but how to endure. His throne was built on experience, not fear. But after the rise of the Cafes, everything changed. The new princes were taught not to lead, but to survive. Their teachers were silence, isolation, and doubt. They learned obedience, not courage, restraint, not vision. And when their time came, they stepped into the throne like men walking into light after years of darkness, blinking, trembling, unable to see the world clearly. The empire began to slow. Decisions that once took hours now took months. Ministers ruled in shadows while sultans hid behind curtains. Fear of rebellion turned into fear of life itself. It was the empire's most elegant tragedy, a cage disguised as mercy. And perhaps that is how great civilizations fall, not with a scream, but with a whisper. Not through defeat, but through the quiet loss of will. In the still corridors of Topkapi, that whisper lingers still. The walls remember every footstep of a prince who never became a man. Every sigh of a sultan who mistook peace for safety. Every echo of a dream that never left the cage. The empire did not collapse in one night. It faded, gently, beautifully, like a candle left to burn without tending. The wax melted slowly, The flame danced softer until only smoke remained. And in that smoke, history wrote its quiet epitaph. They built cages to protect their crowns, but the silence within those cages became the sound of their end.
By 1700, the empire that once terrified Europe couldn't wake up to face reality. The Ottoman court still glittered like a jewel beneath the sun, but its brilliance was hollow, like light trapped inside glass. The sultans slept longer, ruled less, and dreamed more. Their days began at noon, filled with rituals instead of reforms. Music played where councils once gathered. Perfume replaced gunpowder. And the empire, once the lion of the world, began to purr like a cat content in captivity. The grand viziers now carried the true weight of power. They held meetings, signed decrees, commanded armies, while the Sultan listened to flute songs from his balcony overlooking the Bosphorus. Ministers came and went, bowing to a throne that no longer spoke. Some sultans spent years without addressing their people, their words reserved only for poets, concubines, and the echoes of fountains. Beyond the palace gates, the world was changing faster than the empire could dream. In Europe, machines began to hum. Steam replaced wind, and knowledge replaced superstition. While London built factories, the Ottomans built gardens. While Paris planned revolutions, Istanbul planned banquets. And every year, the gap widened, not in distance, but in awakening. The empire's pulse slowed beneath layers of velvet and silence. There was no enemy at the door, no war too great to bear. The danger was gentler, comfort, the kind of comfort that seeps into bones, softening resolve, erasing hunger, the kind that tells a nation, you are safe, even as it forgets how to survive. In Topkapi, the scent of roses masked decay. The Sultan's sleep chambers, once symbols of divine rest, became cocoons of escape. He slept surrounded by gold, by silence, by dreams of a world that no longer existed. Servants whispered outside his door, afraid to wake him, as if waking him might shatter what little peace remained. And so the empire slept too. Night fell softly over Istanbul, and for the first time in centuries, it was not the call to prayer that ruled the dawn. It was the sound of silence.
The Ottomans had once ruled the crossroads of the world, but by the 18th century, their crossroads had turned into a dead end. The Grand Viziers now steered the empire like caretakers of a sleeping giant, keeping it alive but never awake. The sultans, wrapped in velvet dreams, no longer led armies into battle. Their wars were fought on paper, in decrees, in petitions, in words that meant nothing beyond the palace walls. Outside, Europe moved with the rhythm of invention. In London, steam hissed through iron pipes. In Paris, scholars debated freedom. In Vienna, composers invented music that could stir nations. But in Istanbul, silence ruled. The sound of hammers and saws in the West was replaced here by the soft splash of fountains. The empire was still beautiful, achingly beautiful, but beauty without movement is a form of death. The Janissaries, once elite, had become a shadow of themselves, more merchants than soldiers, more politicians than protectors. The army that had marched across continents now refused to leave the city walls, and when foreign ambassadors visited, they spoke in whispers. "The lion is asleep. Let it sleep." Within the palace, fear began to take root. Fear not of enemies, but of change. Sultan after sultan retreated deeper into the labyrinth of Topkapi, where walls grew thicker and corridors darker. One sultan, Abdul Hamid II, slept in a different room every night. Paranoia was his only companion. He feared assassins behind every curtain, conspiracies in every shadow. He ordered mirrors removed from his chambers because he no longer trusted his own reflection. He banned clocks because time itself frightened him. The empire, too, was terrified of its own reflection, of what it had become. And so it stopped looking. The outside world roared forward. Factories, revolutions, enlightenment. But inside the Ottoman court, the nights grew longer. The Sultan's guards carried oil lamps that never seemed to burn out, as if light itself was too loyal to leave. And in those endless nights, the empire dreamed of past glory, of marble cities, of oceans it no longer sailed. But dreams, left too long, begin to rot. The Ottoman Empire had not been defeated by armies. It had been defeated by comfort, by memory, and by sleep.
In the same century that the Ottoman Empire slept, another ruler opened his eyes. His name was Peter the Great. While the sultans wrapped themselves in silk and fear, Peter disguised himself as a sailor and left his empire to learn from others. He walked through the shipyards of Holland, studied machinery in England, listened to philosophers in Paris. He watched, he learned, and he built. When he returned to Russia, he brought back not treasure, but transformation. He dragged his empire, screaming and alive, into a new age. In Istanbul, the sultans heard of his reforms, his navy, his schools, but they dismissed them as noise from a distant shore. "We have all we need," they said. "God has favored us for centuries." But even divine favor fades when the favored forget to move. The Ottomans still believed the world would wait. It did not. Europe surged forward with iron and ink, while the empire remained frozen in gold. By the 19th century, the contrast was impossible to ignore. Steamships filled the Bosphorus, foreign banks owned Ottoman debt, and the maps of Europe began to redraw themselves, inch by inch, around the sleeping giant. The palace still glittered, But now it glittered for visitors, not for power. Tourists marveled at the tiled halls, the jeweled lamps, the silence. They called it beautiful, and it was, but beauty had become a tomb. Sultan Abdul Hamid II still moved from room to room, fearing death, while outside the empire was already dying. The people whispered that the Sultan's insomnia was a curse, that the spirits of the forgotten sultans haunted his sleep, begging him to wake before it was too late. But he never did. He trusted his dreams more than his eyes. In those final years, the Ottoman Empire became a reflection, not of power, but of memory. It was a mirror that showed Europe what happens when greatness refuses to change. And when the mirror finally cracked, there was no sound, just the quiet sigh of a civilization that had slept too long and woke up only to find that morning had already passed.
November 1922. Istanbul was silent beneath a silver sky. Inside Topkapi Palace, once the beating heart of an empire, a single room still glowed with candlelight. Sultan Mehmed VI, the last ruler of the House of Osman, prepared for sleep. For 6 centuries, his ancestors had slept under these same ceilings. Emperors, conquerors, dreamers. But tonight, the silence felt different. The guards no longer marched outside. The call to prayer echoed faintly, as if unsure whether the empire still lived to hear it. Mehmed stood by the window, staring at the Bosporus. The same waters his forefathers had crossed to conquer Constantinople now carried British warships, their flags reflecting in the moonlit waves. He pressed his hand to the glass. It was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into history. His valet entered quietly, carrying the silk nightrobe embroidered with the imperial tugra, the royal emblem of a world that was ending. "Shall I light the incense, Your Majesty?" asked the servant. The Sultan nodded. The scent of amber and musk filled the air, just as it had on the night of every coronation, every birth, every prayer of the Ottoman line. But tonight, it smelled more like farewell. He removed his ring, the same ring once worn by Suleiman the Magnificent, and placed it gently on the nightstand. For the first time, he hesitated before lying down. He looked around the room, the gilded curtains, the Quran resting beside the bed, and the portraits of sultans past whose eyes seemed to follow him. "Is this how empires die?" he whispered, "not in battle, but in silence?" Outside, the wind rustled through the palace gardens, carrying with it the faint cry of the muezzin and the ghost of a nation that no longer dreamed. The night deepened. In the distance, thunder rolled over the Bosphorus, not from a storm, but from the sound of engines. British warships waited like silent judges in the harbor.
Inside Topkapi, the Sultan sat in his chair, still dressed in his nightrobe, the letter trembling in his hand. It was short, cold, and final. The Grand National Assembly in Ankara had abolished the Sultanate. 600 years of rule had ended with a few lines of ink. His signature, once able to command armies and shape borders, now meant nothing. The empire that once stretched from Hungary to Yemen was gone, reduced to memory and dust. He read the letter again, his eyes tracing every word as if hoping the meaning might change. It did not. Mustafa Kemal, once his general, now the founder of a new republic, had declared that the age of sultans was over. Mehmed's breath caught. He looked around the room, at the shadows of ancestors painted on the walls. Their faces seemed to fade, one by one. He whispered, "Forgive me." The muezzin called for dawn. For centuries, that sound had marked the beginning of every Ottoman morning, the moment when prayers rose and banners unfurled. But this time, it sounded like a funeral bell. Servants wept quietly as they packed his belongings: the Quran, a silver rosary, a small vial of soil from Bursa, the birthplace of the dynasty. At dawn, he stepped into the courtyard. No guards lined the path, no music played. The great gate of Topkapi opened slowly, creaking like the sigh of an old man. Outside, the British Marines stood waiting beside a black car. He turned once more toward the palace, toward the domes, the cypress trees, the marble fountains where his forefathers had walked, and whispered a prayer only the night could hear. May God forgive those who forget. Then, as the call of the gulls echoed across the Bosphorus, the last sultan of the Ottoman Empire left his home forever. The sea was calm that morning. As the British warship sailed away from Istanbul, Sultan Mehmed VI stood on the deck, wrapped in a gray coat, his turban gone, his eyes lost somewhere between the waves and the sky. Behind him, the domes of Topkapi grew smaller, then vanished in the mist. He did not speak. There were no tears, only the silence of a man who had outlived his world. He carried little with him: a Quran, a family ring, and a single framed photograph of his ancestors. Every empire dies twice, once in the world and once in the heart of the last man who remembers it. Mehmed VI carried both deaths within him. Days later, he arrived in San Remo, Italy, a land that was never his. The villa he stayed in faced the sea, but it wasn't the Bosporus. He would sit for hours watching the water, listening to the wind, as if waiting for a call that never came. The locals called him the Quiet Man. He no longer used the title Sultan. Sometimes, when the sun set, he would whisper prayers in Turkish and Arabic, his voice trembling between worlds, one that had ended and one that no longer cared. In 1926, 4 years after leaving Istanbul, Mehmed VI died in exile. His final wish was simple:
to be buried in the city he loved. But the Republic refused. His body rested instead in Damascus, under a sky not his own. And so ended 6 centuries of Ottoman dreams, not with swords, not with fire, but with the sound of waves against an unfamiliar shore. History rarely ends loudly. Most of the time, it exhales, quietly, softly, like the final breath of a man falling asleep. The Ottoman Empire did not fall in battle. It faded in the stillness of its own grandeur. And somewhere, perhaps in the memory of marble and dust, the voices of its sultans still whisper through time, "Do not sleep too long, for even dreams can die."
Today, Topkapi Palace stands in silence, not as a seat of power, but as a memory. The marble floors still shine under the same sun that once lit the footsteps of sultans, but now those steps belong to tourists, whispering through halls where empires once breathed. The smell of incense has faded, replaced by the faint perfume of polished wood and sea air drifting in from the Bosporus. The peacocks that once wandered the gardens are gone, but their feathers remain in glass cases, frozen in color. In the Sultan's bedroom, the silk bed still glimmers under soft light, perfectly made, perfectly untouched. The air is cool, still, reverent, as if the room itself remembers every dream ever dreamt there. Visitors walk slowly, some speaking in hushed tones, some taking photos, others simply staring at the emptiness that used to be power. The walls, gilded and cracked, seem to listen. They have heard it all: the laughter of kings, the cries of concubines, the sigh of servants who waited in the shadows. Now they hear the soft shuffle of shoes, the click of cameras, the quiet wonder of strangers who try to imagine what it felt like to rule the world and lose it. Outside, the palace courtyards are alive again, but not with soldiers or scholars, with children chasing pigeons, lovers resting on marble benches, elders watching the sea. Time has softened everything. The empire's cruelty has faded, its glory dimmed, its fears dissolved into stories. And yet, beneath the calm, something lingers, a question that refuses to die. How does greatness disappear so quietly? How does a civilization go from roaring to whispering, from empire to echo? In the gentle hum of the wind through the cypress trees, the answer hides like a ghost. It happens not when we are weak, but when we stop noticing that we are asleep.
If you stand long enough inside the Sultan's bedchamber, You can almost hear the echoes of what destroyed them. Not gunfire, not rebellion, just silence. The kind that comes when comfort becomes a cage. The silk pillow that once cradled a sultan's head was softer than clouds, yet it carried the weight of an empire's downfall. The first lesson of Topkapi is this: luxury without purpose leads to decay. The Ottomans forgot why they built their palaces, their rituals, their dreams. They mistook comfort for strength, beauty for wisdom, ritual for progress, and so they slept deeply, peacefully, while history moved on without them. The second lesson is older than any empire. Isolation from reality is the beginning of collapse. The sultans surrounded themselves with walls of gold and obedience, while the world outside their gates changed faster than they could imagine. They silenced criticism, ignored innovation, and feared the new, until the new simply replaced them. The third lesson, perhaps the most human, is that power without preparation is disaster. For centuries, princes were raised not to lead, but to wait. When the time came, they knew how to sleep in silk, but not how to rule in storms. Empires, like people, die not from one mistake, but from the slow erosion of purpose. We build comfort until comfort builds walls. We seek peace until peace becomes paralysis. The Ottomans' tragedy is not distant, it is familiar. It lives in every boardroom that confuses status for vision, in every dynasty that values inheritance over understanding, in every leader who mistakes luxury for longevity. Look closely, and you'll see reflections of the same silk pillow in our world today, in the way we chase convenience, worship comfort, and call it success. So, if you listen carefully in the halls of Topkapi, you can still hear it, not the footsteps of power, but the echo of warning. The marble whispers when the wind passes, "Do not forget." 600 years of glory, and in the end, it wasn't fire or conquest that ended it. It was sleep. Not the kind that heals, but the kind that numbs. The sultans slept in silk while their empire crumbled. And maybe we are not so different. We too build our palaces, digital, corporate, personal, and fill them with distractions. We too drown in comfort, mistaking abundance for meaning. We scroll while history moves. We dream while time burns. And someday, someone will walk through the ruins of our empires, our companies, our nations, our lives, and ask, did they ever know when they began to fall asleep? The Ottomans teach us that decline is rarely sudden. It arrives quietly, a meeting postponed, a truth ignored, a purpose forgotten. That is how greatness fades, not in explosions, but in sighs. So tonight, as you lie in your own bed, listen to the silence between your breaths. Feel the stillness. Let it remind you, comfort is not peace.
Sleep is not freedom. The mind must awake even when the body rests. History is not a warning to fear, it is a mirror to reflect upon. And if you can stay awake to your own life, your purpose, your love, your truth, then maybe you will never have to wake up in ruins. The waves outside Topkapi still break gently against the stone walls. The city still glows under the moon. Empires end, but wisdom remains. And as you drift now softly into your own sleep, remember, stay awake inside the dream.